welcome back to Biz This Morning. Well, while I celebrate the arrival of my guest, we're having a bit of a delay on that side, but let's just quickly check with trading at the European markets. Europe is about a little over 2 hours into today's session as the final trading day for the market. Investors are still reeling from the euphoria of that rate cut yesterday by the European Central Bank. The central bank decided to cut its key interest rate down to 0.50% from 0.75%, and Mr. Mario Draghi, the ECB president, said that the monetary policy will continue to remain accommodative and continue to remain so as much as is needed, or for as long as is needed by the European market or the European economy as a whole. Let's take a look at the numbers from trading so far. The FTSE 100 up at 6,464.83 points. Markets in Germany, that's Zito DAX, up marginally by 0.02% at 7,963.37 points. Markets in France also looking good, currently trading at 3,862.07 points. That's a 0.09% climb so far. Markets in Switzerland, that's a Zurich Swiss market index, not looking good at the moment. Market is in negative territory, down right now by about 0.25% at 7,882.49 points. Of course, investors in Europe will be keeping their eyes on the non-farm payrolls data that will be released later on today by the U.S. Labor Department, tracking the number of jobs created every month outside of the agricultural sector. It's called the non-farm payrolls data, and it's key for the U.S. market. That gives a clue as to how much of a recovery the U.S. economy is recording. And of course, we know that the jobs market usually gives a boost to the U.S. economy because the U.S. economy accounts for, or consumer spending accounts for about 70% of the U.S. economy. And of course, if they don't have people who have jobs, there won't be any spending. So people need to have jobs first before they spend, and when they spend, that's what drives growth in the U.S. Now let's take a look at the U.S. numbers, closing numbers from Wall Street yesterday. Green numbers across the board. The Dow Jones Industrial Average still high above 14,000 points, adding 0.89% yesterday. The S&P 500 also rallied close to 1%. The Nasdaq, the best performing gauge for the session, up 1.26% at 3,340.62 points, while the Russell 2000 also actually outperformed the Nasdaq yesterday at 939.85 points, up 1.69%. Now, expectations are high for this data that will be released in a couple of hours from now. Analysts say they're expecting to see 140,000 jobs added or created in the month of April. That's added to the U.S. economy. Don't forget also that the U.S. Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, or the meeting held by the U.S. Federal Reserve, that took place this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. And at the end of that meeting, the U.S. Federal Chief, Mr. Ben Bernanke, decided to keep the U.S. policy stance the way it's been in the last 2-3 years, keeping interest rates low between 0 and 0.25%. He also said that the FOMC will continue with its asset purchase program, buying $85 billion worth of bonds every month, long-dated bonds backed, and of course mortgage-backed securities to help support the U.S. economy. All of this, of course, as we've seen, has been supporting the U.S. economy and showing that businesses have access to cheap credit. Now, the key rate is the amount that the U.S. Federal Reserve lends to commercial banks in the country. And now, since that has been low, that has also been providing so much support for the U.S. economy. So that's what the markets will be focusing on today. And if the numbers come out, if the numbers meet market expectations, we can expect to see a rally today at on Wall Street market. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that and giving you the details, the numbers as we get them. Now today, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at the liquefied petroleum gas cylinder market, also known as the LPG, or popularly known as the cooking gas. I'm being joined now by Mr. Genius Odoemenam. He's an energy and petroleum economist, and we'll be looking at the latest developments in this particular sector. Thank you so much, Genius, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Now, as I mentioned, I did say at the beginning of the program that it's not a market that's this LPG is not often something that's often talked about. No, we just take for granted the fact that we take our gas cylinders, we go to where we get it refilled, we just refill it with gas and we take it back home. We're not sure about. Many of us are not particular or sure about the lifespan, what the lifespan of this cylinder should be, where it even came from in the first place, the contents and all of that. So just share your thoughts. Well, let's start from what the SON wants to do.
Yes.
The pre-qualification exercise, as you know.
Yes.
Let's start from that.
Yeah. Fine. What the standard organization intends to do, and what it has come out to tell Nigerians that it wants to do with gas cylinders, LPG, that's the common cooking gas. What it wants to do with the cylinders is requalification. And cylinder requalification is simply a way of calling back cylinder that is already in use, in circulation. You have a time frame within which you call it back. Call back this cylinder and say, okay, fine, I want to look at the quality of this cylinder again. I want to test it. I want to test it for effective use again. I want to test it for its lifespan. Every given cylinder has a lifespan from the manufacturer. Now, when it has done that lifespan, or even prior before that lifespan, a lot of factors can lead to its failure. It can leak. It can bulge out, in which case it is no longer what it used to be, or what it is meant to, the purpose it is meant to serve. It cannot serve it effectively. That calls for requalification. And cylinder requalification will mean that this cylinder is brought into a workshop again and now tested for its ability to withstand and function as a cylinder, as a gas cylinder.
I imagine that must be a huge exercise. Now, how does SON plan to do that? There's so many of them in so many Nigerian homes. How is this process going to be like? Are we going to have to give up our gas cylinders?
Yes. That is where SON is also going to do more work. Because cylinder requalification will mean that, ab initio, these cylinders would have been coded. Every cylinder manufacturer has a way of knowing his own product. Okay. So now in Nigeria, most cylinders in circulation are not branded. Overseas, where these cylinders come from, most cylinders are branded. Now in Nigeria, the ones in circulation are not branded. So you cannot say this belongs to this company or belongs to another company. That is one challenge that SON has to resolve. Another challenge is that these cylinders, the lifespan of every cylinder is supposed to be embossed on the body. Most cylinders in circulation today do not have that. So SON also has to resolve that. These are challenges that it will face on its own part.
Now, who are the major players in this industry?
Yeah, for now, all the major oil marketers, all the major oil companies or major oil marketers are also LPG dealers. And then you have the independent marketers. Some of them, or many of them also, are also dealers of LPG. And you have